Hello, I'm Clint Walker, and this is Real Estate Appraiser Secrets. And today we're going to answer a question I was asked recently, which was, I have a buyer who's demanding to be at the appraisal inspection when the appraiser goes there. Is that allowed? And so the answer to that question is, sure, it's allowed, but is it advisable? And the answer to that is no. There are a lot of people in the transaction who, we're going to talk about the majority of transactions here, and I guess I've already thought of a one-off where that might be the exception to the rule. But in the majority of transactions, there are a lot of people who could provide the appraiser with some sort of valuable information. The listing agent, the seller, the person who currently owns the house, they could certainly provide the appraiser with valuable information about the property. I encourage listing agents specifically to show up at that appraisal inspection and have the comps they used to price the property and have the upgrades that the seller did. And, if you've got an appraiser who's willing to chat with you, chat them up, make them feel good about the property. Don't tell them the value you want them to hit or try to bribe them, but you can make them feel good about the property. On the flip side, if you are handing them a list of sales and some detrimental things about those sales, like maybe they smell like smoke or pets or something, that affects the marketability of a property, or it was part of a messy divorce and that's not advertised publicly, but you know it from living in there, and that might explain why that sale is lower than all the rest, whereas otherwise it's inexplicable. Share these things with your appraiser, because really we're gleaning most of our information from the MLS. And so what if it's not advertised and it's not posted there, it can easily be missed or be outside the scope of what we're going to hunt down and verify. So listing agent certainly has valuable information. The buyer's agent might want to call and provide some sort of information about why they think this property is a standout among others, if that's true. When I am the buyer's agent, I know how few listing agents interact with me as an appraiser, and so I'm always on top of that as a buyer's agent, and I basically do exactly what I just told you that I think every listing agent should do, which is to get the sales that my buyer and I also considered in addition to this house, whatever else I think might be special about it. I want the appraiser to know what we were thinking, because I don't think the listing agent's going to do that if I just go off the numbers. Who else might have some sort of valuable information? The seller, maybe they didn't tell the listing agent some things because they play things close to their chest and they want to tell the appraiser. That's fine. But of all these parties involved, it's my opinion that the buyer themselves has the least valuable information for the appraiser. They got practically, I've never met one that had anything to say that I needed to hear. Now that doesn't mean they couldn't exist. Maybe this is an investor deal, and maybe this is an expert buyer. And in that case, there's the exception I was talking about, that I thought of a minute ago. Maybe in that case, this buyer does have something for me. They are an expert in this type of property. They are looking at as many of these properties in order to buy for themselves as I do to appraise them. There are situations like that where a buyer could have good information for me. But if we're talking about the majority, little FHA first-time home buyer or whatever else scenario there is, these are people who are primarily being informed by their agent, and therefore, the agent is the one who's going to have the valuable information for me. They are a biased participant in the transaction, And in that regard, both agents and the seller and the lender and everyone except for the appraiser is also biased. But the buyer is kind of a special version of biased. What else? They're uninformed, they're biased, they're not an expert. It's maybe the first house they ever bought, and they just want to pump the appraiser for information. The inspection is not a great time for that. It's not free time to pick the appraiser's brain about real estate in general. They're there for a purpose, and they need to not be distracted while they're there, because appraisers who are moving too fast or distracted or just being complacent cause problems in your transactions. So you don't want that to happen either. So I fail to think of a lot of good reasons for a buyer to be there. It is not forbidden, but it is not advisable. And on that note, I'll tell you, I know from that some of the AMCs and lenders, they send out these boilerplate emails to the selling side, to the listing side, to the seller and their agent, specifically telling them to not be there when the appraiser goes by. If you or your seller is getting that sort of information, you can disregard that as well, because that's not, the AMC cannot tell you what to do, the lender cannot tell you what to do, and there's nothing stopping you from being in your own home or at your own listing when the appraiser comes. Again, you don't want to aggravate them or delay them or distract them. Excuse me. But nothing says you can't be there. So that may be marginally helpful for some of you if you've got that. Maybe you've got that sort of client. I think if you've got a client who's demanding to be at an appraisal, that in and of itself is a reason to tell them not to go. And if you've watched this video, you can say, well, I once watched this video from an appraiser who said you really shouldn't be there. And maybe that'll help give you some authority and a clout and help you persuade them to not go. Because again, your appraiser is just a human being, and they're there to render their expert opinion. They are themselves sort of an expert buyer, and the input of a buyer who just does not have a valuable level of information is not valuable, not useful to them. It's just not adding anything to the transaction. So hope it's helpful. We can never do an appraisal for you, a pre-listing appraisal, which we're doing a lot of. You can hire an appraiser to do a pre-listing appraisal, and we can do that for you. If you need a pre-listing professional measurement, we can do that for you. If you need a consultation because you just got one little sticky point and in something you're trying to, maybe you're the buyer's agent on a deal and you got some concerns, or you got a pre-listing appraisal and you just got one question about it or a couple questions about it and don't need a lot of time, schedule a consultation and we can help you with that. So I appreciate you watching as always, and we will catch you next time.